The Faculty of Education at York University has had a partnership with its local school board for nearly 20 years, in which we work with schools in the local area. Since 2008, the York Center for Education and Community, an organized research unit within the faculty, has been doing an inclusive education program within the local school. What you'll see in this video are examples of our work within the schools and with teachers, and particularly the institutes which we've had, bringing teachers and community residents to the university to talk about the research and our findings, and to think more about the work that we need to do in order to help schools develop more inclusive education.
I'm Sarah Barrett, Research Coordinator for the School and Community Engaged Education Project. Our research purpose is threefold. First of all, to document the process of developing a more inclusive curriculum that will increase student engagement. Secondly, to evaluate to what extent we're successful in that endeavor. And thirdly, to hold up a mirror to each of the schools so that they have the tools to reflect on their efforts to improve student engagement into the future. We've adopted a collaborative approach so that in every school the project looks just a little bit different. We are basically working with the parents and the community members and teachers to develop all of our goals.
Next, we want to understand the ways that neighborhood challenges show up in our schools and in our classrooms, and then to understand that these challenges, though persistent, are not permanent. So when we're thinking about the challenges of poverty, are we asking questions like, in what ways is poverty impacting the families and the students that are coming into our schools, that are in our classrooms? And once we are noticing this, how are we responding? What are we doing about it? We want to understand how this data shapes our relationships with students, youth, and their families from high priority neighborhoods. And finally, in what ways does this data influence the decisions, the instructional decisions that are made?
What kinds of schools in low-income communities in particular improve under various kinds of school reform efforts? And the latest study of that was one done by Anthony Bright, people might be familiar with, that was published in a book called Organizing Schools for Improvement. And he studied schools across Chicago, and he looked at gains in student test scores, at least as a measure of improvement. Maybe not the only one we care about, but certainly an important one, from 1990 to 1996. And he and his colleagues were able to identify what he called 5 essential supports necessary for improvement. Okay, and these were things like school leadership, professional capacity, student-centered learning climate, instructional guidance. But the 5th pillar was family and community engagement. And he was able to demonstrate that it was only the schools that had strong forms of family and community engagement were able to improve their test scores over those years.
I believe that our #1 priority as a community and as educators is to raise literate students, children that are proficient readers and writers. A simple but powerful commitment to all of our students that the opportunity to pursue their dreams will be constrained only by the limits of their imagination and never their postal code. And I believe with every fiber of my being that we can accomplish that as a school board. But just think about how many times that we hear this when people are describing their students. Well, they're poor. It's their parents' fault. They don't know the language. No books in the home. Look where they live. They come to school hungry. It's always about the kids and their families, which is driven by a pedagogy of poverty. And this philosophy that these kids are coming with all of these deficits, so there's this subtle persistence of low expectations. How can we take action in the classroom to interrupt these cycles of oppression?
Schools are important neighborhood institutions. And one of the things that we'd like to explore at the York Center for Education and Community are questions related to how schools can participate more fully in community development. That is, how schools can support efforts by parents and other community organizations to address issues related to housing, food security, safety, and overall community health and well-being.
And once in the school, community voices and experiences that are student voices and experiences become part of the inclusive practice that is classroom teaching and learning.